Just another quick note for those watching on YouTube. We are just waiting for all tonight's participants to arrive and should be getting started in just a moment. Thank you so much for your patience. And of course, thank you to all of you here for your patience as well. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so very much for your patience. My name is John Tate, and I'm the event coordinator here at McNally Robinson Booksellers. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that McNally Robinson is located in Treaty 1 territory. That's the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. In addition, McNally Robinson Booksellers itself rests on the land once occupied by the Métis community of Roostertown. If you have just arrived and are looking for a seat, please do feel free to come in. Rest assured there are seats available all around the space. We are so thrilled you could join us here, both physically here in the atrium and of course virtually for all those watching on YouTube. We are here tonight to welcome back Jessie Thistle, the #1 best-selling author of From the Ashes, who's returned to Winnipeg to discuss his new incredible book, Scars and Stars. That's published by McClelland Stewart. I'll now encourage you all to join me in a rousing round of applause for this book. It's particularly wonderful to have Jessie back here at the store, as we had him very shortly after the publication of From the Ashes, before it became a Canadian phenomenon. So as you all know, Scars and Stars just published this week as well, so it's delightful to have Jessie here to share and celebrate his work here with us. I won't take up too much more of your time because I'm the least interesting person you'll be hearing from this evening. I appreciate that, thank you. But I just wanted to express just let you know how the evening is going to go, and then offer a few words of introduction because we have some wonderful people coming up here to read. Scars and Stars is an incredible book that kind of builds on the poetic injections that existed within From the Ashes and expands them even more so. So it's a full immersion into Jessie's world of words and just a really close and very different look at him, his story, and his incredible work. So we're particularly excited that you'll be hearing more from that tonight. To give you an idea of the procedure for the evening, as soon as I'm finished speaking, Jessie will come up here and he'll read some selections for you. And then he'll be joined by the incomparable Rosanna Deerchild for a conversation. And that'll take place immediately to my left. That conversation will go on for around 45 minutes or so. And at the close of the conversation, I'll then come back up with some exciting notes about book signing procedure. So you can all look forward to that. The only thing I will mention right now is just the fact that during the signing, just when we are safely transporting Jessie over to the signing table, which is beside our cash desk, we just ask that you all remain in your seats for just a moment to ensure that we can get him there before you. And there'll be some few more notes about that I'll tell you later on. Jessie Thistle is Métis Cree from Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, and an assistant professor in humanities at York University. In Toronto. From the Ashes, his memoir was the top-selling Canadian book in 2020, the winner of the Rakuten Kobo Emerging Writer Prize for Nonfiction Indigenous Voices Award and the High Plains Book Award, and it was a finalist for CBC's Canada Reads. Jessie won a Governor General's Academic Medal in 2016 and is a 2016 Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation Scholar and a 2016 Vanier Scholar. A frequent keynote speaker, he lives in Hamilton, Ontario with his wife Lucy, and is at work on multiple projects, including his next book. Your host is Rosanna Deerchild. She is Cree from the community of Opipinapalan, Cree Nation. She has been a storyteller for more than 20 years as a journalist, broadcaster, and a poet. She is the host of CBC Radio 1's Unreserved. Her debut poetry collection, This is a Small Northern Town, shared her reflections of growing up in a racially divided place. It won the 2008 Aqua Books Lansdowne Prize for Poetry. Her second book, Calling Down the Sky, is a collaborative work with her mother, who was forced to attend Indian residential school. Her first play with the Royal MTCs, and excuse my clumsy settler tongue, Pamatayoan, Creators Circle, is called The Secret to Good Tea and will be produced for the stage for their 2022 to 2023 season. Basically, every event we possibly can is just an excuse to have Rosanna behind the microphone, so we're thrilled she's here tonight. But before we bring her up, I'd like you all to join me in welcoming Jessie Thistle.
Good to see some of my squad out here. Thank you guys. Have you ever flown with a 10-month baby? Wow. This was the hardest flight I've ever taken, but also the most rewarding. Rose was hard to contain. We had to overfeed her so that she'd go to bed. She finally went to bed about a half hour ago and we flew in this morning. So just to let you know how my day went. But yeah, I'm a new father. Life is good, you know. I've lost a bunch of weight. I would like to say that it was my narcissistic tendencies that wanted me to lose weight, but it was because I wanted to play with my daughter Rose on the ground. And I had a hard time getting up. I was close to 300 pounds about 2 years ago. And so I decided to give her a better life. I had to lose the weight, and Lucy's also working on it too. So, but this poem that I'm going to start with actually, and why I'm starting with it is because in 2013, I had to report my father missing. He went missing in 1982. And I reported him missing to Peel Police in 2013. Sometimes in families where people go missing, they say that they equate it to adventuring, or they're off trying to find themselves, or it's shame, and they just don't report them. That happened in my family. I had to go as his son, as a university student, after I told my supervisor, Carolyn Podruchny, what had happened with my family. She said, that's not right, go and tell them. And last week or 2 weeks ago, they finally got around to drawing a composite sketch of my dad almost 10 years later. So I have a very dicey relationship with the police. So this is for my grandmother, actually, the mothers of the disappeared. She knits in silence, recalling her child when they first rode down the street, wind and wonder whizzing through their hair, those training wheels off. She stares out the window to that spot by the lake, just off the rickety dock in early summer, where they first learned to swim. She waits in a rocking chair, the years given way to tears, holding her holy relic, hoping for a child's return, and wishing when it happened, God was with you and that you weren't alone. In memory of my grandmother who waited, in memory of my father who never came home. So, sorry to suck the room out of the air, guys. But that's really important for me to recognize, because the search is ongoing. That's actually why I published From the Ashes. I made sure that they put the missing persons poster in there. And that's why I write about my dad in this book, because I'm still looking. That was my grandfather's dying wish, that I find his son. Part of my journey was a reconnection back to myself in my 30s. I was disconnected through the actions of my father, actually a white guy. We were lost to the state for a little bit, and my grandparents took us in. But what that did is it took me out of my cultural matrix. My mom's people are Michif Cree from around Debden area, so PA, if you guys know PA in Saskatoon. And so I went back when I was 33 to meet her. And part of that process, if anybody's reconnected, is you perform your indigeneity. When you first learn about it, you get really, really, really excited, and you turn into almost like super Métis. So I was wearing sashes and fur, carrying around a paddle. I looked like I was from the 17th century. My mom said, yo, chill, that's how I know you're not us, you know? We were Adidas, you know? So this is about my reconnection journey. What reconnection looks like. I once found an eagle feather in the parking lot of a McDonald's. It was a little greasy and smelled like hash browns, but I loved it. The molted plumage was a chance to express myself, a chance to know my mother's Métis Cree people who'd been lost to me way back in my troubled childhood. I took it all over, to ceremonies, to smudge and say a prayer over, until one day, an elder pulled me aside. I hate to break it to you, son. That's not an eagle feather. That's from a seagull. This is why I never judge someone who is trying to reconnect. We are all just trying to grab anything to find ourselves. even greasy feathers at Rotten Ronnie's. I read that to my cousin Chris Anderson at U of A. He loved that poem. So it's actually very empowering. So part of my journey to wellness was accepting the traditional roles of being a father. Like, I'm terrified to be a father. The whole time Lucy was pregnant, I wanted to run away. I was making plans in my head to do what my father did, because father to me growing up was Darth Vader. You know, that's what in my mind, or Sid Barrett from Pink Floyd, just off somewhere, lost his mind. And so it took a lot of courage for me to just accept being a father and to stay. But once I stayed, I started to get rewarded in the best possible way, right? Even when I'm bitching about those flights, they're still the best moments of my life, right? So this is about one of those moments. It's called Someone's Ancestor. There was poo fired up her diaper, up her back. How that happens, Creator only knows. She cries every third hour, like a baby whale calling in the Pacific. Some wolf cub spirit unrequited, forever hungry, forever searching, forever thirsty. The constant bending over into the bassinet, the burrito wraps that hold her tiny but powerful arms, the squiggles, the milk spit up in bibs, the pee, the surprise pee, a fireman's hose at midnight, the blood-curdling screams upon first bath. All of it is worth it to be someone's ancestor, to see the generations across her face, through the life, the body of this tiny little girl before me, born when the fall leaves were their most colorful, born when the frost froze all the hate within me, and born when everything else needed to die. So those are my collection of poems that I wanted to start and open with you. I see Rosanna's in the back there. I wanted to keep it a little light because the first half of the book we'll talk about is a little heavy, right? And I moved from my old life all the way up until the present day to what I'm doing today. So thank you for that.
Hello, I wasn't trying to be mysterious, I was late. This is going to be your life from now on. You're going to be always late.
Oh,
You're
yeah,
always running behind 10 minutes. You'll never be able to find your bra, and your kid will have had your keys and your bank card, and he'll find it stuck on the bottom of her Reebok's shoes.
Oh, it sounds lovely. I'm looking
Good times, Jesse. So good to see you. It's been a long time.
Yes.
You look fantastic.
You too.
Thank you. Well, thank you. I'm doing my best. Hello, everybody. How's it going? Well, I haven't been in a public place in forever. That's really the reason I can't find my bras, because I can't wear it in 2 years.
Happened to my wife Lucy too.
So beautiful book, of course. I didn't expect anything different from you, because you're a fantastic human being, and I know you, and I tell everybody.
Thank you. Royalty checks in the mail.
Oh, good. So let's give it up for Jesse. I'm Jonathan. How are you? Sorry I'm late again. Okay, so Jesse, the title of this beautiful book that you created is Scars and Stars. So what scars and stars are you sharing with this collection?
Well, some scars from when I was on the streets, suffering with my own addiction issues, disconnection issues, as well as eulogizing people that were like stars when I was there, that guided me with kindness, literally saved my life, you know? So that's the first beginning of the book. And then as it progresses, I show more and more stars. I start to show Lucy, you know, and I use the analogy of Achilles' shield, because I don't know if anybody's aware that I have a really bad reconstructed ankle. And so I'm decorating my shield with all these stars and all these scars, you know, to show off, and so you guys can admire it. And as I go, it crescendos all the way up into fatherhood and what I'm doing now, and trying to reconnect with my culture and how that looked. And so,
Yeah.
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 And why did you decide that you would use poetry this time to tell that story?
Well, if you look at the way that From the Ashes was written, it was written in what's called an empirical realist style. So it was supposed to be that you were
I don't know what that means.
watching a movie using like clipped sentences and fast, short chapters to reward the reader, and the effect was supposed to be like you were watching a movie, where there was little introspection as to how people felt, me included, as well as other people, because you can't really do that in that kind of writing. Where I could express myself with those poems, I did show you some interior feelings, right? And so we got all letters from all over the globe of people saying, the poetry is the best part of the book, man. Where's the next book? And so that's why we decided. The first book was 80% prose, 20% poetry. This book is 20% prose and 80% poetry. And it's written in what's called a romantic style. So I went back and I started studying emotive writers from the early 19th century, Victor Hugo, Shelley, Mary Shelley, and seeing how they wrote in an irrational, emotional style, which is the opposite of this empirical style that I did in my first book. So I'm actually talking back to myself too. I'm retorting my last book.
Ah, that's amazing.
Yes.
Well, I did all the research and stuff. I just sit down and write things. But your way works too.
Yes, sometimes.
As you mentioned, you're allowed to be vulnerable in these pieces, and I really felt that. I really felt that in your words. Often I felt like I was like opening your heart and seeing what was in there. What did poetry allow you? Why did the poetry allow you to do that?
Poetry for me quite literally saved my life. Like, I don't know, my journey to literacy happened in my early 30s. I was functionally illiterate coming out of the jail system and rehab. And this hot redheaded girl was interested in me and sent me a message after my grandmother died. That was Lucy. She's way out of my league, you know. I'd been in custody, I guess 7 months by that time. And so I was like, I want to score with this girl, you know. So I started writing poetry alongside my GED studies. And so that was my way of communicating with her. And she'd send things back and say, oh, you're actually a good writer. I think she was just saying that to me, but it made me feel confident in myself. And I kept sending them to her. And then she'd send me some back from E.E. Cummings or a letter drenched in perfume and whatnot. And so that was my path to love, right? My path to literacy, and also my path to freedom, right? I've heard Billy Ray Belcourt talk about how poetry can free a person's mind. I 100% agree with that statement. It freed me and gave me a family, a new life, and an education. So
yeah. And is that the first time that you experienced and expressed the power of poetry, or had you been writing poetry before that?
No, so when I fell off a building, I shattered my ankle in 2005, and I was shuffling around with a severe infection, and a gentleman told me about the legend of Achilles and how I had basically had the same injury that he had. And then he told me about Achilles' shield. He told me about, like, if you look at the Homeric poems, the god Hephaestus created for Achilles this shield, and on it had all the different concentric circles of reality. It had the polis, that's the city. It had civilizations. It had all the animals, the universe, and everything in between. It had everything but poetry, this guy told me, because the shield itself was poetry, because poetry is a language of creation, right? And I think he was trying to arm me, you know, with this empowerment tool, because I started to take note of all the things. What it did is it showed me that everything is poetry, and you can write poetry about every living fragment of your life. And so from that time, I tried to almost like observe and categorize and revisit later to write. And so this really started for me, really taking off around the time that I was talking to Lucy, where I started to apply that and say, hey, maybe I can just write about looking out a window, and that's poetry. Maybe I can write a cool love poem to this girl that I want to get in her pants, you know, or whatever, you know, that's how it worked for me. And it just allowed me to emote and express myself for the first time really in my life.
Yeah. And did you think that would all roads led out because of poetry? Was that something you were consciously aware of at the time?
Well, I think it's both, right? There's like, I'm always looking back to, right, trying to like find some sense in my life. So it's like I don't know if you've seen where two rivers meet. Sometimes there's like eddies. One stream will go up that way and the water will swirl around and be all muddy. That's kind of how I am. And so I'm always looking back, I'm swirling around and I'm trying to capture everything in poetry. But I'm just like two streams going the opposite way. Does that make sense? Am I losing you guys? Yeah. And out of that comes poetry, in that chaos.
In that little schism there.
That's right.
That's the sweet spot.
It is.
Now, for those who have yet to read the book, you divided, as you said earlier, into different segments of your life, segments.
Yes.
Of your survival. Can you just go over what those segments are for the
Yeah.
audience?
So one of the issues with From the Ashes was that it was 80% darkness and 20% me getting better. And so we wanted to flip that. This is really 20% of my life on the streets, with some eulogizing people that I knew then, right? To remember them. And really it's a section of love poems to that old life. Right? Because I'm not going to write about it again. I haven't told my publisher that, but I'm doing that again.
Your publisher's like, what?
The middle part is love letters to my wife, right? You know, it's kind of not a great career move for a guy to be like writing a book of love poems, but it's just what came to me. And then the last section is love poems to my daughter and my family today. And so we flipped the content to show you the progression of healing that I've taken, you know, that I can now love my wife and have love in my heart. So,
yeah. And it's a beautiful reflection of what your previous book was. And in fact, there's a hidden message, because there's a hidden message attracted to Achilles, who died.
That's right.
In the fire, but you
know what? Not many people know the real meaning. And
please explain to the audience, because I was like, what? Mind blown.
Yes. So the whole book is structured around the trope of Achilles' shield, but Achilles, if you know the legend, he was, I forget what god visited him and he offered them the proposition, you can either go to Troy for glory, you'll live a short time, but you'll be remembered forever. Or you can give that up and have a family and they'll forget you after a generation or two. But you'll have a family and, you know, you'll endure that way. And so he obviously went off and was shot with Paris's arrow and died and was cremated and turned to ashes. That's what From the Ashes actually means. That's the fourth and hidden meaning of From the Ashes, where I think in my embodiment of Achilles, and now with having a family, I'm giving up glory so that I can be a family man. And I think that that's the right move. And I think that maybe that's why I disassociated into that in the first place, was to get to Rose, you know, because historically, I guess Achilles didn't make that choice and I learned from his lesson. So
you're like Achilles if he had made a different choice.
I am, I'm trying to be, yeah.
Deep, right?
Yeah.
Is your mind blown? Is it? Mine was. You write lovingly about the people you knew on the street, the people that were in your life during your addiction, some who were saved, some who saved you, some who were not saved, and some who were still in that place. What do you want people to know about them through the pieces that you've written? Those people that walk by on the sidewalk, that ignore those people who lock their doors as they drive by. What would you like them to know with this book?
I want people to know that some of the people that I was on the streets with helped me get off the streets. They saved my life. They're good people. They're loving people. They have families and people that care about them. and they're everyday heroes. They're just not rewarded the same way or valued by society. And I don't know, I wanted to eulogize them because I know that outside of what I'm doing, a lot of them won't be remembered. And that to me is a great tragedy because I saw greatness in them. You know, I did. And I just want people to appreciate that, you know, kind of like there's this one girl that I went to high school, Ange, and she blew me a super at this like trap house, and it was the sweetest thing. I know it sounds weird, but it was a moment of kindness that I hadn't felt in so long. And she was a worker at St. Christopher's House in Toronto, and she was part of the fentanyl epidemic. We lost her. She was doing the work of saving people even while she couldn't save herself. And so I want people to recognize these heroes for what they are and for the impact they made on my life and likely hundreds of others more.
Absolutely. And permission is really important to Indigenous people when we're telling these stories. We always make sure that we have the permission to carry that story forward. Is that something that you were concerned about?
Yes, I talked to Angie's family and I asked her, is it okay if I talk about this? There's another one where I talked about a woman that was a paramedic that took care of me. I've got word that it was okay to share her story. And so, yeah, it is important. And even though some of them, the people in the book are not Indigenous, they're just regular folks that were on the streets with me. So,
yeah. You mentioned earlier that there's a segment in there, Love Letters to Lucy, that you wrote to her in front of your cabinet of shampoo.
Yes.
I just love that image. Your hair and a nice suit. But what I love about that story is that she, unbeknown to you, had kept them and waited.
Yes. This is actually how this book came to be. I thought my writing career was over. You know, I just was kind of packing it in and trying to be an academic. And she's like, hold up, Jesse, I got this secret stash of steamy love poems that you sent me way back in 2009. Do you want to read them? I think they're publishable. So I read them and I didn't think that they were very good, right? This is when I'm learning to read and write properly and whatever. But she sent them off to Sam, which is my agent, and Sam sent them off to M&S, and we were offered a contract right away. And so Blast from the Past poems that I thought she had deleted years ago turned into this book. And so this really is a testament to Lucy's archival skills, I guess.
And again, she's once again saved you.
Yes.
In the last part of your book, you focus on your daughter, Rose, and your life as a father. What do you hope that your daughter will see when she's old enough to read this book?
Well, I want her to see that we as Indigenous writers can write about anything, even if we want to write about Achilles' shield or Thor's hammer, right? Taika Waititi talked about that. We can write about anything, and in that process, whatever we produce is Indigenous, right? Jojo Rabbit is Indigenous because it's directed by Taika. So is Thor, right? The last two Thors. And so I thought maybe, hey, what if I can do some of that neoclassical melding together too? It exists in painting. There are some painters that are doing that are Indigenous, but in literature, I haven't seen it. And so I just thought I'd dare to do something nobody else was doing. Just went for it.
Yeah. That's the way you create things.
That's right. That's
I'm
right.
sure creator wasn't sitting there going, nobody's done it before though, right?
Yeah, and I don't know how it's going to be marketed, because how do you market an Indigenous book about Greek mythology, right? It's kind of like, maybe it'll be a winner though.
Maybe it will.
The English departments will carry it for sophistication. I don't know. We'll see.
Now, I want to just take you to the end of the book.
Yes.
Your epilogue, where you write about not being able to answer the question about how you survived so much trauma, so much violence, so much addiction, so much lost history, so much loss, and how you always deflected that question to talk about the bigger issues, issues of homelessness, the bigger issues of addiction, the bigger issue of our missing and murdered men. How would you answer that question now?
what was the question again? Sorry, I want to get it right.
How would you answer that question now?
How
did you survive, Jesse?
How did I survive? Through the kindness of others. That's what it was. And I disassociated into this poetry. And like, it was almost like I was watching myself a lot of the time, you know, and yeah, I don't know, luck maybe, I guess. Like how to come, I'd made it out, my brother's still suffering. I don't know how. He was doing better than I was initially, and now I'm doing better than him. I don't know. I have no idea. So I'd like to think it was this shield that I carried, you know, that deflected the world away from me and empowered me and made me feel that, hey, here I am, this mortal guy, and I survived this horrific wound where once Achilles didn't. So what does that say about my personal strength? And I knew that, I prided myself in it. So,
Yeah.
you know, if that's a full enough answer for what you're looking for, but.
Yeah, it'll do. And where do you think that shield will take you next?
Well, I've now given away the shield with the book. So I've lost my immortality. I'm a family man, and I don't care if they come for me now. I've already done what I'm supposed to do with my life, and that's be Rose's father. You know, I know that. And it's a very centered type of feeling to know that and be confident in that. But also in giving that my book away and all my poems and my stars and my scars, who do you think I was giving that shield to at the end of the book?
I think you were probably giving it away to everyone.
In part, but it's for a very specific individual who will be 20 years old in 20 years from now. Rose, my daughter. I'm trying to arm her and tell her it's okay, you can write whatever you want. You are the next generation of warrior, you know, and go for it, I guess. So that wasn't a romantic enough ending, but you guys get the picture.
He's like, I guess. Well, thank you so much, Jesse, for your time, your beautiful work.
Thank you.
And for your, you've bloomed.
Yes.
Like a Métis rose.
Oh, that's why I named her Rose, actually.
I know everything.
Yeah,
Your answer. Ladies and gentlemen, Jesse Thistle.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosanna. Thank you, Jesse. We'll now be moving along to the signing portion of this evening. So that'll take place just beside our cash desk. If you'll just give us one moment, we'll move Jesse over to the signing table, at which point you are welcome to join us over there. Jesse very kindly pre-signed some books for us as well. So those are available for purchase behind our front cash desk. We also have other copies, unsigned copies of the book available there. Feel free to get a book signed before you pay for it. Just please do remember to pay for the book at some point during the evening. One quick note is that I will be wandering, oh, and I'm just going to turn off the other microphones. There we go. One quick note is that I'll be wandering down the line with Post-it notes to write your name on it. That's just to ensure you can spend a little less time spelling your name when you actually arrive at the table. And the only other note I'll say is that if you do wish to have a picture, we do ask that you just do that in front of the table and just give your cell phone to the person who'll be standing right by the table who will help you with that. Thank you so very much for joining us. And please give another very, very warm round of applause for Jesse Thistle and Rosanna Deerchild.